Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So I just got back from a long trip in Italy and I thought I'd do something really loose and easy. So I decided to do a fall watercolor landscape since we're almost done with our leaves and well, I can't stop painting them. If you have any questions, please leave in the comment section. Yeah, it's really simple, loose. If you're a Patreon member, you get the extended version along with the little loose little sketch that comes with it. If you're not a Patreon member, you can click the link below in the description box to find out about Patreon. I have extended videos, ad-free videos, weekly exclusive videos. On the top tier, you have a live stream. We have a Facebook group with weekly challenges and monthly giveaways, all that good stuff. So you can find all the information out in the link, like I said, in the description box below. But for any skill level, this painting is, doable. I give you a reference photo for everybody. You click on in the description box and click on the supplies, and you'll see the reference photo there. And I just go about how I attack that photo, how I paint this wonderful, bright orange foliage with the little river, and you can see how I would do that if you had a photograph or you were seeing a scene similar. Now you know how to attack it. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so let me go over some of the supplies I'm using. I'm using Fabriano 100% cotton cold press. This is a block. Okay, it's the purple one. I'll be using my Princeton 12 Neptune series. Might go back in with the number 8 for the little, twigs and whatnot. 8 Velvet Touch series, by the way, Princeton. Oh, I wonder why it's not focusing. There we go. Yeah, and you have the reference photo here. You can click on the words show more. The words drop down. There's a description box, supplies, and the reference photo link. That's how you do it for finding out all my supplies and etc. Everyone always asks what this palette is. This is from Sylvan Clayworks. They're pretty expensive. They're ceramics. They drop them every now and then. They don't always have them in stock, so you have to grab them when you can. Anyway, so I just kind of sketched out really loose where the trees would go, kind of like the zigzag of the river, and you don't have to follow the whole thing to a T. It's just like an inspiration for painting some, fall foliage. I'm going to play around with attacking this in different ways. So obviously I have a nice beautiful blue, slate blue kind of color sky, and then we have this beautiful orange. If you paint this whole area blue, and then you go to paint the orange on top, you're not going to have this light kind of orange color. It's going to be muddy a little bit. So I think I'm going to paint the, I want a really loose kind of design anyway. My way of attacking this, you have to think about this. You have to have a plan when you take a picture and you say, oh, or you're seeing something out there. How you're going to attack it. Many ways, right? You can be really super realistic, which I'm not going to do. Or you can attack it very loosely, which I'm going to do. So I will be painting in the orange kind of foliage first, and then kind of washing the sky around it. And I'm going to loosely put in the blue here and a little bit of the orange kind of colors here. And I'm not going to always follow to a T. If you want to make it more yellows than orange, do that. But that's my attack plan. It's always good to mix up your paints first. Cadmium yellow deep. This is cadmium red light. You get a beautiful orange. You can use all kinds of colors for this. You can use these, whoops, goodness gracious, Hydra P.H. Martin's watercolors. I just, basically the top wasn't on, so I just, you're hearing me do crazy stuff. That is it. That's that wonderful carmine color. This is the vermilion, which is really bright. I can play around with that. So here'll be a nice orange. We can make a little red orange just by making this cadmium red light loose, right? So again, how am I going to attack this? I think I'm just going to get it wet. So wet on wet techniques. You wet the paper and then you put in the color, right? Wet on dry, all that kind of stuff. If right now we're putting the water on here, it's going to be wet on dry. See, this is wet water. Good film around on my brush. Kind of wiggling it where I'm going to put all the paint. La la la, all over here. I'm not going to do the water just yet. I'm just going to wiggle where I'm going to put the bright oranges and whatnot. You see this whole area over here? So here, wiggle, wiggle, here. I can come and play with it going down here a little bit also. Again, I'm not doing the water yet. So now it's wet on dry, but then when I have a wet paint on this wet area, it's wet on wet. And that's how it works. And you see the sheen, right? You can see the sheen through the camera. We'll just start with grabbing this color. Kind of play around with putting this in. This is the lighter orange. Right, we mix up first, and it's going to go down in here also. And again, I'm just taking my 12, I'm kind of wiggling it, going up and down like this. La la la, really simply. We can add some more bright yellow. Get in there. Like, have fun with the color. Don't get so... If you're looking at the photograph, you get so stuck on that photograph. You can change it. Have some expression. Don't have to be exactly like the photograph. You see what happens over here. It looks very, very gray, but there is orange behind it. Because there was so much gray in front of it, you can't see it. So you can put the orange in here. And it gets really intense up top, like around here. So I'm going to put some yellowish color in here. I'm not really following this to T. I'm just kind of playing with color, as you can see. Throwing in some more of this bright orange. You can put in some brown, so have burnt umber here. Kind of throwing that in. I like to mix burnt umber with Paynes gray. You get a nice deep brown. Just wiggling my brush back and forth. It's already looking like a fall foliage kind of situation. Back here, we go back and forth. All right, got that bright cadmium. Now I mix my brown, I had it on my brush, so it's a little dirty brown, dirty orangey yellow, red color. So I'm going to go back here with the cadmium red light. Really kind of just tippy tap. Now that it's wet, you can play with this. Tap it. All along, la 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 la, right? Again, I'm going to add some yellow, make it bright orange. You can flip this upside down, the paper. It's very wet. It's going to only move where the water is, right? So you can kind of bleed it. Look at this fun stuff. See how it just stops where the water is? That's the beauty. I'm going to go put some over here. Now you could spray it and continue in the water. It's up to you. See how it just stops? So now I'm cleaning up my brush, grab some clean water, and I'll kind of push it around, show them who's boss back here. And I'll tap it back on my paper towel. I don't really necessarily want all this orange to go everywhere because we're going to put blue there, right? And like I said, we don't have to follow the photograph to the T. I'm just going to tap again, some more bright orange. I mixed the yellow with that red. Now I'm going to put some clear water here. All over here. And back here. And then if you flip it around and it moves, it will move more. See? You want it to move a little bit, not a lot. We'll have those fuzzy trees. You do need to have some loose paint though. So I'm going back and mixing up some color. Moving this paper around, see? Tilting it back and forth. Got this bright color. And it'd be kind of cool to put a little splatter. We can paint around it. And we don't even have to paint the blue. Look at that bright orangey. Kind of red. I don't want to leave a white spot there because it's going to be darker. We already have a gray. We can take the Paynes gray, or we can mix some ultramarine blue, which I love to do, with some burnt sienna. And we can start to mix some gray in this section in here. It will bleed. Don't worry. See? Very gray in there. A little bit in here. We're playing with the color. Add some more blue. And I'm just going to change it up a bit. Having fun, guys. I'm going to put some of that orange. And now I'm going to grab some more yellow with some burnt umber to make kind of like a yellow ochre. Kind of put that color in here a little bit. I know there's a lot of oranges, but let's play with some yellows too. Everything in the kitchen sink here. Right? Now, I didn't mention having a credit card close by, but if you do, save it, because while it's damp, we can, this is really puddling, this is really wet. You can move this paint around a little bit. You go back and forth, you're just wiggling your brush. Now I'm going to pick some more orange again. Go over here. Again, still haven't done the water yet. I'm going to do that last, actually. There is a reflection here. You can choose to do it or not do it. I'll do a little bit of that. I think it makes sense to do this. So, I would just suggest taking some of that orange paint and just kind of wiggling it. See, the brush, just wiggling it up and down like you see in the photograph. You could do wet on wet, but I think this is fine. You don't want to get yourself too crazy with the colors. And when we put the blue in, you'll see a bit of the reflection. Boom, 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 boom. See? Just that wiggle. Everything's kind of bleeding nicely. Add a little more gray in here. You can just add some blue. And that will turn into gray. It's very gray back here. Right? And gray in here. Can add a little more blue. I'm just kind of wiggling my brush back and forth like that. We're getting there. Now we're going to add some yellow again. Orange. Just kind of wiggling back and up in here. Look at that. You can make some nice little sprigs coming this way. So, remember we talked about damp with that credit card? It can be your friend. I'm going to go back and grab some like red color and some grays right in here. This little line in between, mixing some grays right in here. So ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, right in here. So all this fun wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Getting there. So people always ask, when do I scrape for the trees to make it look like birch trees? It can't be super wet. It has to be damp. It still kind of looks super wet. You can do a little tester when you scrape it, and if the paint folds back into the paper, you know it's not ready yet. See? It's folding back into the paper. It's still too wet. You can make some really cool trees like this though. So, but you still have to wait a little bit longer. So while we're waiting, we can play around with adding in the lovely blue water. It's kind of like a slate blue, little reflection. I'm going to use ultramarine blue and my lovely burnt sienna. Makes a nice slate color. More color because we have a surface area to finish. That's pretty big. All right, test it on a paper towel. Just about there. It got really loose. I want to get a little bit thicker. More the consistency of like milk than tea. And let's see if I like this. No, it needs more blue. It's too gray. Okay. Yeah. We'll have to play with a little more blue. Okay. And I'm just going to go take the brush. I'm still using the 12. Go back and forth. See? You can leave a little white in there for reflection. See? Wiggle the brush back and forth. Obviously, back here you wouldn't see much white, but in here you would. I'm going right over that reflection that I did. Right? Go right over there. Little lines, couple little lines over there. And back in here. Don't worry about this section. We can go back over with some color. But see? It kind of looks like the sun's shining on it. Maybe could have probably left some in the background, a little white. If you didn't, maybe you can scrape some if you didn't. See? The credit card comes in handy in many ways. I'm getting more paint thicker, so ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. So a little bit thicker, gets a little bit darker still after that first wash. You see? Look at that! Became a river already. Go right over the color you did here. Go down in here. And you know what? Use this rough paper texture to your advantage. Kind of going like this. You don't have a lot of paint on here, and it gets that reflecting kind of look. Right? And like I said, we're not going to paint every surface. You can paint every surface if you want and copy the picture, but this is the general consensus of how this is going to go here. You see some of the color kind of reflecting like this. So we'll take the paint now and go up and down in between that lovely orange. And I feel like the orange faded a lot. We can add a little bit to it. So you can take this, go down a few of these, like you see in the photograph. Like this. We'll get that orange a little bit brighter. If you feel like you're going to mess that up, don't even bother with the reflection. You don't need to have it. I'm going back and adding in some of the deeper color. Voila. Now I see like a little white big area here. I want to fill that in a little too much. White was left over. Right there, it's pretty cool. So now I think it's damp enough that where it's soaked in a little bit of the paper, and we can try and scrape it with the credit card and see what we get. Here's the fun part. All right. Not perfect. There's not a lot of birch trees in this picture, so you can kind of play with that one. If it folds into it a little bit, that's fine. Not bad. Not my best, but and like I said, you can use it to scrape in some, foliage too. But I love the reflection that's going on here. So now you're going to build up even more color. The ultramarine blue again, but the burnt sienna, thicker paint. It's a little bit darker, a little more blue. Gets a little thicker. Still very wet, but you can kind of go in here and add some depth with some deeper color. You see that? There's a lot of darkness kind of happening around this section, going right over that little section we had here. And down in here, you can kind of wisp up some of this. See that? Wisping it up. Again, I'm going to paint a little bit thicker, almost like butter coming out of the tube. Do a couple lines. You see like these like muddy lines kind of coming through. Gets more reflective. Here we missed a little bit of this section, so I'll put a little bit of browns going in there. Maybe you want to switch to the 8 long round. So I'm going to grab some burnt umber, mix it with some of the grays we did there. I'm going to do like a little zigzag, see? So we have the brown kind of going in there. We can mix in some of the grays. You can go into the water a little bit. And then go back and grab some of those oranges we mixed up. Mine's a little darker, but you get the point. Yellow, orangey, color tones. Just kind of wiggle back and forth with this. It's supposed to be grass. And there's some back here. Again, it's not perfect. It's not supposed to be. But that's the gist of it. Right? Just really kind of loose. And you're taking those dark tones of the blues. And you're going back in here and you're kind of just making this nice little reflective color here. Don't go crazy. And I'm going to add those blues kind of in here now. So it makes sense. Right? Looks like that. It was a little darker over here. If you wanted to put a little bit of reflecting, you could. I don't think I need too much of it. That's good enough. So then for the trees, you could take at this point some Paynes gray if you want to, or you can still use the gray that I mixed up. Now you have to check and see if it's super, super wet. If it's not, you can go up in here, and start to put in your little trees. See, that I've drawn in, that you see in the photograph. It feels a little wet, so I might wait a little bit so it's less damp. And you start to put in all the trees that you see. In this section in here, it's a little bit brighter with the orange, but you know, this is the whole point. You're just playing with this. I didn't do the sky. I decided I'm going to keep it out. You can change it if you want to, put it in. It's up to you. And also, with the same brush, take in your paint colors, mix the yellows, oranges, whatever. Stop playing with this grasses going up here. And if you take yellow right out of the tube, like thick, like that, thick, right over there. Add a little burnt umber to it, whatever. It's so thick. It can go right over on that blue and you'll see it. You see that? Yeah. It's really fantastic. Right? So now I'm going to let some of this dry so I can go back in. I'm going to just take some of this blue grays, kind of go in here where the grasses are, you see in the photograph. Play around with that a little bit. You can add some orange kind of bleeding up into that. It's all up to you. It can be more yellow. I might go back in here and add a little bit of a bright orange. Color tones. Wiggling with my number 8. Can do some grasses just by wiggling the brush back and forth, up and down. Woohoo! You can even scrape in that area too. See? Don't go too crazy. Some people have a tendency to go overboard. You know who you are. You can see the grasses. It's fun to do the credit card. I just don't recommend it all the time because people get a little nuts with the credit card. All right, I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to come back and do our lovely little tree branches. So it's dry. I'm going to play around with this Hydrus Vermilion hue. Let's see if I can put... Woo! That's pretty intense. I just wanted to play around with it and see how it came out. Maybe not the best, but I'm going to fill in some of this bright orange color here. Reflection. Before I go and do my little trees. Kind of died out, didn't it? We want to get it back. So I'm going to go put some back in. Just so you can see it. Alright. Just take a number 8 long round or whatever you have that works for you for a small, skinny, kind of like... I actually do have a 4. I really don't use it. But can you believe I actually have a small brush? So, Paynes Grays works great because it's really dark. Water it down a bit. And we're just going to make skinny little branches. Follow like some of the photographs. See how they move and twist and turn and kind of go out in the end and all that good stuff. Just get all those little branches in. It would be nice if you did some like pre-ones when it was damp. And then you go back in and do these ones. Because it has a nice kind of mystical quality to it. And as you get up into the tree branches up here, you just kind of like break through some of these areas. So I'm just kind of dashing in a little bit of line, kind of breaking through, and you'll see some branches kind of tweaking, coming out through the foliage. And there's a tree here with all the little branches. You look in November, like right now, they're falling off the tree, so you'll have some that's still there and then some that's not. So you get some of those branches kind of peeking out from the tree below. Kind of follow through that by putting the little dash. See that? Another little tip is, so if you scraped your lovely birch tree, put the line of the darker color to the right, just on one side, and then of course add your branches. But see how I just added the black or the dark gray on the one side of the white part that was scraped off. It just looks a little more authentic that way. You can put the little lines in there, but I think it's not necessary. And of course add your little branches like so. You put some trees down here. Have fun with this. You don't have to follow the photograph. I'm just getting it. I just use it for inspiration. I like the little river. But now I'm at the point where I'm kind of intuitively painting, and I'm just putting in my branches. You can put on some music or a TV show or something. And just kind of see how I'm just kind of pushing these little lines back and forth, little twigs, pulling them out with this skinny little brush. This is where the fun starts. You don't have to do a million of these, but just enough so that you can see that it's trees there, because you'll make yourself crazy trying to do all this. And little branches, and they kind of crisscross over each other. This one's like really wild, going over this one and this section, crisscross. You see that? And they kind of peek through up into the tree. So you go up over here, and then they kind of peek up on the top, come out just like so. And that's pretty much it. You really don't need to see me paint every little twig. And as you keep painting like these twigs crisscrossing in here, you'll notice that's how it gets nice and gray. And then when it's done, painting all your little twigs and your leaves and, your twigs, we can go in and we can actually go back in and add some more foliage by splattering in some color. I know everyone loves to do that. And I feel like it could get darker in here. You can kind of add some like grasses that are darker. Play around with this a little bit. Again, it's just an exercise in having fun, painting foliage. This is really for any skill level. You really can do this. It's just watering wet and wet. Going in here with the little twigs with your little brush. Get used to playing around with wet and wet. And taking a photograph and just changing it up. I changed it up. I don't have exactly what the photograph shows, because I particularly didn't care for that, everything that they had. I can go back in here, like I said, and kind of wisp in the grasses, etc. And then, of course, at the end, if you want to splatter in some more color over all the little twigs that you did, that's always a good thing to do, too. Oops, those are small. If you want bigger splatters, you got to have a bigger brush and a lot more water. There you go. Just for reference, if you didn't know that. Has a lot of different energy now, huh? I want to get that yellow in there. And you splatter over all those little twigs that you did. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's it. So have fun with it. Play around with it. If you're a Patreon member, I'm going to have a little extended version for you. If you're not, consider joining. I have extended videos, like ad-free videos, weekly exclusive videos, all kinds of good stuff on Patreon. You can find that link in the description box below. So thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I hope you're having fun just playing with watercolor, wet and wet, wet and dry. This is something I'm just getting back in the swing of things, getting back home from traveling, and I just kind of play with color and wet and wet and then see what happens. Don't have to be so, insane about it. You could have put the blue sky in if you wanted to. I decided not to. But you could try that. And you see how there's like white clouds back in here? So maybe if you put in the blue and left it a little white, like, you can do that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.